All right. Thank you for joining us. Brent Wagner, let's start with you.
Yeah, John, can you just walk us through the timeline for Friday, how quickly you went from we're playing a match at 6 to a match is postponed? The two matches are postponed.
Well, we all tested in the morning at, I can't remember, was it 9 o'clock maybe, in Northwestern included. We were told that there was a positive, so I was talking with Shane, their coach, about contingency plans if she were to test positive on the second test, and that test, we had to drive up to Omaha. They processed it. We heard back like at 4 o'clock that it was positive, and we had to cancel the match. So Shane and I have been talking all day, and we were also preparing, what happens if we started the match and we found out the result later, what we would do and so on. So that was kind of the whole day. And 4 o'clock, it was shut down by the Big Ten, the doctors, and everybody who makes those decisions.
So this wasn't a situation where the coaches could decide based on position availability. It was straightly Big Ten makes the call.
Yep, and apparently Northwestern has, or Evanston and Illinois have different rules than Nebraska, so they have to follow their state rules and county rules and city rules or whatever. So this was a decision made by the doctors and the, government people who make those decisions.
Lincoln R. Neal.
Coach, they used the terminology postponed for the Northwestern matches. What are your thoughts about getting that rescheduled, and what are your appetites about playing 3 or 4 matches in a week?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think when they reschedule, it's going to be like what Michigan State and Ohio State did last 2 days. They both were supposed to play Michigan and Penn State, who are not playing, so they got together and played. We were actually trying to get Michigan State. As soon as Northwestern canceled, we were talking to the Big Ten about playing Michigan State. So that's how the postponements are going to be made up. It's the easiest way to do it. I don't see us playing 4 matches in a week. There's no way.
Are those conversations happening at the school level with the conference, or what is the arrangement of kind of figuring out how those matches are going to be made up or rescheduled?
Yeah, that's the Big Ten running that show and talking with our administrators here.
Kevin Suits.
So what did you guys do then, John, this past weekend with no matches all of a sudden?
Friday we just let them go because I think they were in shock and disbelief. And then Saturday we practiced and tried to create a game-like scrimmage just so we would, continue to. We're still figuring out how to go through warm-ups and routines and all that because we haven't, it's been over a year since we've done it. So we just kind of simulated a game day and played a inter-squad match, and that was Saturday. And back to normal routine this week.
John, how do you describe the impact of losing those 2 matches for the development of your team? Because you get started and then all of a sudden you stop. And I know that's kind of the way that this is going to go this year. But how do you describe the way that maybe this affects the schedule that you had for your team in terms of getting their performance to peak as the season goes along?
Yeah, we definitely need to be playing matches. You get better every time you play. Any coach will tell you that. Fortunately, we can create a pretty good situation in our gym that's pretty competitive, which has been really nice. But still, it's different nerves, different team, it's different environment. So playing matches is really, really important. And how does that affect us? I don't know. It's an 11-week season. What's more worrying is like Northwestern now. If they're shut down for 3 weeks, half the season's over by the time they get to play again. Penn State and Michigan are going through that now. So that's the big nightmare right there. And I'm sure when Fred comes up here, being off 20 days is just, wow, I can't even, it's hard to even imagine that.
Andrew Ward.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, John, have you talked to Fred at all about what their experience is, and how much does that worry you in general?
Yeah, I pretty much been checking in with them all, every day, every other day, just trying to learn and what they're doing, how they're approaching all this, how to prevent from getting it. And so, yes, and every coach is worried about something happening or having an outbreak. So we're doing everything we can and try to educate them and try to be safe, and you just hope for the best.
Jacob Padilla.
Coach, I know Maryland's actually got all 4 matches in. Looks like their blocking numbers have been pretty decent. They took Ohio State to 5 sets twice. What have you seen from them, and what kind of challenges they'll present to you, especially coming off this break that you guys are having?
Yeah, they're a big physical team. They play their outside hitters all the way around, so they have probably the most back row attack of anybody I've seen in a while. They set a lot of back row attack in transition. They've got some physical hitters, really a couple great players, Pritchard and the other middle. I can't remember her name right now, but they've been there for a couple years. They're older, they're more experienced. Their coach has been there a little bit longer now, so they're an up-and-coming team, and it's a Big Ten match, and they have an advantage on us that they have played 4 matches. They've been in 5 gamers, both 5 gamers with Ohio State, which is great, and so it's Big Ten, baby.
Lincoln Arneal.
How much is there any concern knowing that Northwestern they're in the Devaney Center and there was conversations that were happening? What kind of protocols were in place to make sure that even when matches aren't played, that there's not any cross-contamination going on between the programs?
The only things, we don't practice at the same time, so we're not there. We didn't sterilize the balls because the player who tested that's why we test early in the morning. She tested positive, so she got isolated right away till they knew officially what the deal was. So there's no contact, no cross-contamination. We just have to keep our coaches away from their coaches, and that's probably the biggest challenge.
Brent Wagner.
Yeah, how did your players?
That's because some of our coaches know their coaches, so we have to maintain social distance there. Yeah, what was your question, Brent?
How did your players handle the reaction of the
not well. They were in disbelief. They didn't believe me. They thought we were playing a joke on them.
So they weren't aware during the day that there was some question about it. It was just at that moment you told them?
We didn't tell them because we didn't want them messing with their minds on that. And again, when we were at Indiana had a player test positive, but later was negative, so it was a false positive. So with these rapid tests, there's a higher percentage of false positives. So we were hopeful that she would be, end up being negative and we could play. So I didn't say anything to our team, but it was almost a riot in the ready room when I told them.
So what time was the decision made?
It was around 4 o'clock. Our players were here getting taped and doing their stuff, and that's when it was called. Northwestern was already here. They were in the locker room, getting ready to come out and do their serve and pass before the match. So, everybody was dressed up and showing up at the party, but then the party got canceled.
Kevin Suits.
So, John, how do you navigate this weekend then? Because I'm sure Friday's going to maybe have a different feel for the girls when they come to the Devaney in hopes of playing again. You have to kind of go through your speech and your protocols and everything that you were going to do this past weekend and do it all over again? Or do you kind of take a different approach knowing that they might have some guarded hearts about what's about to happen?
No, I think I've been prepping them for a year. You just got to take it day by day and hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And so we just stay in our routine. That's a big thing we're trying to do now. It's hard for them with school because they don't go to class anymore. And we're just trying to keep them in a routine, and our routine throughout the week and our routine leading up to matches. So I think they'll be excited to play. But now the reality is that, when you're in college, you don't ever think like, oh, it's going to happen, or it's going to get canceled. They don't think that way. And so now they know it can happen, and hopefully that helps them to be more urgent with them staying safe, and so we can have a season.
One more question from Lincoln Arneal.
Coach, how did you see that they kind of bounced back? You mentioned they were in disbelief on Friday, but when they came back on Saturday and then yesterday, how did you kind of assess where they were mentally, physically ready to get back in the routine of things?
Well, Saturday was great. They were excited to play. We let parents come in and watch, so it kind of felt like a game because we had parents that traveled here, so we were able to do that. And then they were fired up in practice Monday. So, but this group's, I cannot remember. I think we've had one bad practice in the last year that I can remember. So this group loves to train. They love being in there. They want to get better, and so they've been pretty fired up.
All right, we'll stop here, and Coach Hoiberg will be up here in a couple minutes.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Okay, mics are good. We'll begin with Coach Hoiberg at this point. I'll start the questions. I'll start with Robin Washut, Husker Online.
Hey, Fred, good to see you again.
Hey, Robin, nice to see you too.
I guess I heard your recap.
I missed you guys.
Yeah, it's been too long. I heard your recap on the radio last night. I guess you mentioned that Sunday practice and how rusty it was and only having 7 available players. Have things gotten any better since then? I know the other 2 guys with the non-COVID issue, have they returned? And what's the status of Delano Banton going forward with that sprained ankle?
Yeah, we did get the 2 back that weren't feeling well yesterday morning, so we were able to have a full practice today, basically with 10 guys. Delano did not practice. He sprained his ankle a couple days ago, the first day back on Sunday, and he's day-to-day moving forward. He's still very tender with the ankle and can't really explode off it. He did a couple things non-contact, mostly on the side, getting some shots up, but he spent the majority of practice getting treatment on his ankle. So we'll continue to get treatment. He's generally responded well in the past. Hopefully we'll get him back for a few more things tomorrow and continue to test it out heading into the game on Saturday at Michigan State. But it was good. Today we were able to get up and down, have a scrimmage. It was better than we were better than we were on Sunday. Took much better care of the ball. But still conditioning, we are a long ways away from being where we need to be. And, rightfully so, with basically 20 days of inactivity, it's going to take a while to get that back. And, every bit as important, the timing. Kind of reminds me when we used to have All-Star break when you're playing in the NBA. Those first couple practices back were sloppy. Took a couple days to get the conditioning back, and those first couple games weren't very good as well. So, when I look at a couple of these teams that have had shutdowns, basically Michigan State had 7 days. A couple of their players had the 17-day shutdown, but we really had 20 days from that first workout back, which was the Indiana game on the 11th, I believe, is the day that we played there. And the 31st was our first practice back, and a lot of that was inactivity. So, I know the numbers have been out there a little bit, but 3 coaches got hit with the virus, 9 players got hit with the virus, and we had a manager and a grad assistant. So 15 of our, one other player that had it a couple weeks before. So 15 of the 30 had been hit and just didn't have much activity heading into that first workout. So in meeting with our medical people and talking to Chris Bach, who's our sports scientist, who's phenomenal, we put together kind of a return to play in exactly what type of loads we want to put on our guys heading into Saturday, so we can have the best chance to compete and have our legs and be fresh. So early on in the process, it was pretty light, our first workout back. We went a little bit harder on Sunday, and then unfortunately we had the illnesses yesterday and really took that as our day off. By rule, you have to have 1 day off. So our guys just kind of did skill work on their own. Getting back after it today, we'll have a full scrimmage tomorrow, and then we'll back off those 2 days heading into our game on Saturday against Michigan State. But, it's obviously it's not ideal, but it hasn't been ideal for a lot of people this year. We just got to do the best job we can. Guys get tired. We're going to have to rotate them in and out very quickly. Probably have to play a lot of guys. We've still got 2 that are in the return to play protocol that we'll get towards the end of the week. But hopefully if everybody's cleared, we will be at full strength on Saturday.
Andrew Ward.
Hey, Fred, I know you talked about this a little bit last night in your radio show, but can you go into a little bit more detail, just like how much the virus kind of took it out of you personally?
Yeah, it hit me hard early. That first night, it was the Friday. I guess it was kind of 2 or 3 in the morning. I just I got up and I had chills. I had a horrible headache. Had sore throat and body aches. Had pretty much everything that you hear about with the virus. And I got a little scared, to be honest with you. Just with everything that I've had in my past with 2 open heart surgeries and, being fully dependent on a pacemaker. So, it concerned me. I took some meds and I did have chest pains, and then that was the scary thing. I woke up, took some ibuprofen and felt pretty good the next morning and thought maybe it was just a little 24-hour deal that I had. I went in, I did the daily testing as we always do. And it was an off day because we had several players that had it at that time. So I, got back in my car. I was getting out of there because we had shut down our office and got the call about 15 minutes later that I had tested positive. So I went back and did a PCR test. We do an antigen daily test, and the PCR is the more accurate one. So I went back and did it, and it confirmed the positive test. And then it was really up and down, Andrew. It was, for those that have had it and have had symptoms, I'm sure you can relate. I actually woke up, I felt pretty decent in the mornings, and then middle of the day, just felt like I got hit by a truck. And, the fatigue was the hardest thing. I still have fatigue. After these practices are over, I am really tired. And I talked to coaches that have been through it. A lot of them reached out when I got when the diagnosis came out, and they say even, you'll see weeks down the line, you'll still be tired and you'll still be fatigued. So I'm just trying to build up my stamina, slowly. Thankfully, I got my heart test results back and everything looked normal. So that was a sigh of relief for me. But it's this thing's a real deal now, and the coaches, all three of us that had it, had pretty severe symptoms. Thankfully, our players did not. We had a couple that had minor symptoms, but several more were asymptomatic. So hopefully they'll be able to bounce back here a little bit quicker. But yeah, it hit me hard early, and again, it was kind of a roller coaster. I felt pretty good on day 4, and then day 6, it was almost back to square one again. So I feel fortunate, really fortunate to be where I am. My oxygen levels stayed normal the whole time, and I never really got a high fever. So from what I've heard, that was good news for my heart.
Chris Basnett.
Hey, Fred, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Hey, how do you kind of manage, the mental side of this, just with everything that's gone on, obviously dealing with the pandemic for as long as you have, and now the shutdown you've gone through, and not winning a game for a little while? How do you kind of manage the mental side of it, both for, yourself, your staff, and the players?
Yeah, I think the mental part of it, Chris, really comes from the shutdown and the isolation, and that's the hardest part. I was actually very pleased with how we were playing, especially in our last 2 games. I thought we played very well for the majority of the game against Michigan State, had a chance to win it, missed a key block out there at the end when it was a 2-possession game under a minute. And then Indiana, the way we came back and took a lead, I thought we executed down the stretch maybe as well as we had all year. We missed 4 free throws. Missed a wide open 3 from Lat, who was our best player, as far as shooting the ball that game, and missed a layup in that stretch. But we very easily could have won that game. So I was very pleased. And, that's one of the hard things about this shutdown when it happened is I thought we had a little momentum with how we were playing and felt we were very close. But, when it hits your team, and that's one thing I look back on, Chris, we had very few cases in the offseason. A lot of teams all across the country, it hit them in August and September, so they had built up immunity. We didn't have that. Once one of our guys got it, it just spread like wildfire through our team. He got it, his roommate got it. 2 days later, another guy got it, and then it went through that apartment, and it just went through everybody. And again, we had 9 positives in just over a week. So, just the way it hit us, it's scary how quickly it can infect your team. But, again, it's as far as the mental side of it, Chris, when you have to go sit in a room and you can't leave for 10 days, that is not easy, especially when you don't feel anything. And it is hard. They basically drop off your food for the day outside your door, and then, that's it. You do that. A couple of our guys were able to do body weight workouts that were given by our strength coach, Tim Wilson. But that, to me, was the hardest thing mentally to deal with, was having to isolate for that amount of time. For me, it actually went pretty quickly. And, kind of in the middle of it is when I started watching film and went back and rewatched all of our games. It was, time went by pretty quickly for me. But for our players, that's who you worry about. Those guys that are in isolation situations, and have to pass the time as well as they can.
Sam McEwen.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Sam.
Did you guys consider at any point just calling the season and saying, we've been through enough and it's going to be hard to ramp back up, and we've decided just to discontinue the season? Was that ever on the table?
No, that was never discussed. We felt, we communicated with the Big Ten throughout this whole process, and that was an important part of it. It's going to be hard, as we continue to schedule these games. It's good that we have, I believe, the next 4 scheduled now: Michigan State, Minnesota, come back for Wisconsin, and at Penn State, and all those game times now have we're all set with those. After that, we have a tentative schedule after talking to the Big Ten, but nothing set in stone right now. But as far as talking about shutting down, no, that never came up. The good thing now with it having gone through our entire team, I think we only have 1 or 2 now that haven't had it. We should be able to play all the way through the end of the season, obviously barring a shutdown by our opponent. But, again, when you look back at it, those teams that this thing hit in the offseason, which was the majority of them, they're going through this thing without a hitch right now. But unfortunately, it hit us, at a tough time, a bad time. But, our guys are excited to get back on the floor and compete.
You've taken COVID very seriously from the very beginning. And I'm just curious if there was a moment, especially during those 6 or 7 days when it was hitting you pretty hard, where you're like, why are we doing this? Like, why are they playing a basketball season? I think it would be a natural thought process to have, especially with your health concerns. Was there a moment where you thought about that and just like the overall wisdom of just doing this in the midst of a pandemic?
Yeah, I thought about a lot of things throughout that time, Chris. You have plenty of time to sit around and think about a lot of things. And, early on, the last thing in my mind, really throughout the whole thing, before I started watching the film, the last thing in my mind was basketball. And, you just worry about your health and how you're going to find a way to get through the day. And, as you start to feel better, then, you start thinking about getting back to some normalcy. And, thankfully, we've got a great medical team that helped us through the process. Everybody is required to get heart scans and get an MRI and get an echocardiogram and get a EKG, to make sure there's no myocarditis moving forward. So we feel good about, the medical team, what they were able to do, to give us some reassurance that we're going to be okay here moving forward.
Thank you.
Kevin Suits.
Hey, Fred, thank you for being so honest with all of us. We appreciate your candor here. How realistic is it that you're going to make up all the games that you're trying to reschedule?
Yeah, Kevin, we're trying to get all the games scheduled, which I believe would be 15 games in 32 or 33 days. Never been very good at math, but, hopefully we'll be able to get them all in. Hell, players don't like to practice anyway, so to be able to play, that amount of game in a short amount of time, but it's going to be very much like an NBA schedule. There's back-to-backs on the table. Again, nothing's been finalized at this point with our schedule, but we have talked about that as an option, to get 2 games under our belt. Potentially playing in the same arena and then not having the, home, if playing a road, not having the home game returned, to help with travel and, to help find a way to get all these games in. But, the Big Ten's done a really good job of staying in contact with us, talking to us about our schedule and trying to get the remaining 15 games in.
Eric Olson.
Hey, Fred, just for point of clarification, what was the date that you first had symptoms yourself?
Whatever that Friday was. Seamus, help me out here.
I'm looking back at the calendar. It was the 15th.
Yeah, it would have been the 15th.
Okay, and you had mentioned your oxygen level, so you might have answered the question. Was there ever any chance that you would have been needing hospitalization based on the way you felt?
Yeah, I never got to that point. And again, I think a lot of that had to do with my fever. I had a low-grade fever, but it never got over 101, and my oxygen level stayed normal. So that was an important part of it. The biggest thing was and still is the fatigue. I did lose my smell. I was hoping to avoid that one, but I did end up losing that. We had a couple players that same thing. I think one of them still doesn't have taste and smell back. it's amazing to me how this can hit so many people in different ways. I was talking to a recruit that had it 7 months ago that still can't smell. So it's crazy how this thing affects people in such a variety of ways. But again, I'm really thankful that our players were not hit hard with it, and again, several of them were asymptomatic. But to answer your question, no, I never I was close really to going to the hospital.
And last thing, did you lose a bunch of weight or anything like that?
I did lose 10 pounds, yes.
Thank you.
Jake Buckstecky.
Hey, Coach, good to see you. Glad you're feeling better, of course. Last time we talked, I had asked you about the Big Ten and where you guys rank, what you think of the conference. I know you were saying you hadn't paid attention to a ton of basketball, but did you get to watch the Big Ten a little bit more and some of these other teams, and did it change your opinion on any of that?
Yeah, I did. I watched a lot of the games in the league, and did it change my opinion? No. I've thought that this is the best league in the country from the beginning, since I took this job 2 years ago. And, you look at last year, I think 11 of the 14 were projected to be tournament teams, and right now I believe it's the same, and 11 top 50 in the net rankings. So the league is an absolute monster. You just see, I think everybody has had double-digit losses in our league, and you see one team look like a Final Four team one day, and then they'll play another team that maybe lost 3 or 4 in a row, and they beat them by 20. So it's just incredible the depth in this league. We're sitting here at 0-5, the only team that doesn't have a win. But I feel we've been very competitive, with the exception of the Ohio State game. So just the overall depth of this league is exactly where I thought it would be going into the season, and just to see the different dynamics and the every team has beaten everybody else, and it had a 20 or 30 point win. So it's just it's amazing what this league has accomplished, and it's going to be fun to see how everything plays out once the tournament starts.
And then you guys are going on the road to Michigan State this weekend. What are you kind of expecting and hoping to see?
Well, I'm hoping to see steps in the right direction as we get back to competing. And, I'm a realist here, so I know we're not going to go out and play our best game of the year on Saturday. It's just, it's just not realistic to think that we can do that after the amount of time that we've had off. But what I want to see is us continue to grow and continue to get better, even in these practices this week. Like I said, that first day back was, about a poor practice as you can have, which is expected. I expected that going in. We were much better today, and I hope we're better tomorrow, going all the way through our last practice on Friday, preparing for this game at Michigan State. And then you got the NBA-type schedule. We're not going to have a lot of practice time after this week. It's going to be, short days, a lot of mental preparation, because we're going to have fresh minds and fresh bodies heading into these games. So, I just want to see us progressing in the right direction. And if we do that, if we continue to get better, make simple plays, we had our last 2 games offensively, we were up around 50%. We hadn't done that this year against 2 very good defensive teams. It's something we can build on, and we're going to have to find a way to get it back, and get it back quickly if we want to compete and have a chance to win. But if we go out there and play hard and compete, hopefully the wins will take care of themselves, and we can get a few of these early to get ourselves some confidence.
Okay, we'll take off 3 more from the group. Chris Bassnett.
Hey, Fred, kind of a big picture question, but how much do you worry about, just how this pause will affect development of players of the program in the long term? Is that something that concerns you at all?
I'm not concerned about that, Chris. I just our first workout back, we had a team kind of just shake off the rust type practice. Got a bunch of shots on Saturday. We didn't have the whole group, but I think we had about 8 of them. And just to see the excitement of our guys to be back in the gym and have the opportunity to start preparing to compete again is a great sign. And I've talked about that since the beginning, about how much our guys love being in the gym and how refreshing that is. And just to see the excitement on their faces, the talk, the enthusiasm in that first day back in that workout was awesome to see. So, again, I'm not worried at all about long term that this thing will affect us.
Kind of in a different direction, but how important is, a guy like RJ Pedig just with helping you guys get the testing done every day, making sure everybody's kind of staying up on that? How big of a role does he play for you guys, kind of keeping that all going for you?
Yeah, RJ's a rock star. He's absolutely as good as I've been around in this business, and he went to Iowa State, so he's very smart. But RJ's phenomenal. Our whole team. When you look at what RJ's done, Tim Wilson, what he's been doing in the weight room. Chris Bach, is the guy that's really been in charge of the testing. He's our sports scientist, and then to put the plan together so we don't just go out there and throw so many things at our guys that we overload them and overbear them, and then you really risk injury. So to have that group and that team to meet with on a daily basis to make sure we're staying on schedule and on par with what our guys can handle as far as a workload, that's a very important part of this process.
Thank you.
Rex Smith.
Hey, Fred, when we just talked to Coach Cook, he said he was communicating with you almost daily about dealing with the virus. Obviously, they're trying to avoid having any issues in their program. From your side, having dealt with it, can you kind of characterize maybe what those conversations were like, maybe some advice you gave him?
Yeah. Obviously, John's got an opportunity to compete for a national championship, and with a very short season, the importance of trying to get through it without a hitch is huge for John and his program. So he was great. He was one of the first guys that checked on me when the diagnosis came out, and stayed in contact with me, checked on me pretty much daily to see how, first and foremost, how I was doing. And then, I had a couple of conversations with him as well, just about some things that we've learned through this process, and the importance of doing all the things that are talked about as far as the distancing and the mask, and doing everything you can to create a bubble, because with John especially, with their shortened season, they can't afford to have a shutdown like we had. So. It's been great. John's been phenomenal. He's such a supportive person, and what he's done for his program is what we all strive to be, and that's to compete for championships.
Last question, Sam McEwen.
What kind of dialogue did you have with your players through the last 3 weeks, especially when you couldn't see them face to face? And then what was your conversation when you actually got to be in the same room with them and on the court with them again?
Yeah, we tried to do the best we could, Sam, to keep in contact. Going back to the off season when we had Zoom calls with our players, we did have a couple Zooms, just about the importance of following the rules and doing things the right way to make sure that they could get back on the floor as quickly as possible and not have any type of setbacks. So that was an important part of it, was to see their face, even if it was on a FaceTime call or on a Zoom call, and then a lot of texting back and forth, just to really see how they're doing and if they needed anything and what we could do to help them through this. Because it is, you can say all you want about everything going on. Nobody has any idea how this affects these guys. And, from a mental standpoint, to have to isolate like they are, to not be able to do things that they've normally done in the past. It's hard. It's hard on these guys. It's hard on us. But, just all we can do is worry about the next day and try to get them through the best we can. And, it was hard. It's hard on our guys. It's been tough all year long. I give them a lot of credit for hanging in there and, keeping this thing away for as long as they did. And then unfortunately, bam, it gets one of us and then the rest of the group gets it. So, it's something we're going to have to monitor moving forward. But again, our guys are in really good spirits right now, Sam. And, hopefully we can keep them there here for these last 6 weeks of the season.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Thanks for doing this today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. That's it, guys.